Hello, YouTube community. It's Robert S., and welcome to RobScure Music, my channel where I hope to introduce you or reacquaint you with lesser-known artists and or albums that are out there in the musical universe. So today I want to talk about Batdorf and Rodney. They're a duo that fight crime in Gotham and wear utility belt. Oh wait, that's Batman and Robin. Seriously though, Batdorf and Rodney are a folk rock duo that formed in 1970. And the way they formed is an interesting story. John Batdorf actually left his home in the Hollywood section of Los Angeles and moved into the Las Vegas home of his girlfriend's parents. And while he was there, he took a job at a coffee house in the University of Las Vegas. And, you know, he was a musician at the coffee house, but he also worked in the kitchen, served drinks, worked the register, cleaned, you know, did whatever was needed at the coffee house. But essentially, he was there, you know, played music. He actually had started to develop quite a following. You know, the college students would come in, they enjoyed what they were hearing, word spread. And then one day, actually, a guy went in, heard John playing, liked what he heard, and he went home and told his brother, who was also a musician that played guitar, about this guy. And he said, you have to go see him. So Mark Rodney, the other half of the duo, went to the coffee house and he listened to John, liked what he heard, introduced himself. They were talking, and Mark was actually invited to join the set, and the two of them played together. They played together very well. They felt like, you know, they had a connection. Lo and behold, they did. It turns out that Mark Rodney was also from the Los Angeles area, and in fact, the two of them went to high school together. So they continue playing together in the coffee house. They become popular, and they think, you know what, maybe we can make a go of this. And so they decide they're going to move back to Los Angeles and see if they can get a record deal. So they go to Los Angeles, and they end up meeting with Atlantic Records, and in fact with the president, Ahmet Ertegun. And they play a couple songs, and right from the get-go, Ahmet likes what he hears. He signs them and tells them, I want you to go to Muscle Shoals recording studio in Alabama, record some songs for the album. So they go, and then keep in mind, these are two young guys. They show up, they're playing with you know, Muscle Shoals musicians. In fact, let me take a look at the album here. You've got people like Barry Beckett on piano, Dave Hood on bass, Roger Hawkins on drums. You know, these are all more polished, seasoned musicians, and you know, they record the songs for the album, go back to Los Angeles, and wait. And they wait. And when they finally hear back from Atlantic, the news is that Atlantic wants 3 stronger songs for the album. So John goes back and writes three more songs. They record those in Los Angeles. Again, they've got some fine musicians. In fact, one of the drummers is John Barbader, who played with the Turtles. He was in Jefferson Airplane, which later became Jefferson Starship. So, you know, if you're familiar with any of the Starship albums, the earlier albums, you'll I'm sure you'll know who John Barbader is. But anyway, so what happened then is they put together all these songs, and they finally understand that the album's going to be released in the fall of 1971. And that would be this album, their first album, called Off the Shelf. And they call it that because they felt like they had been waiting such a long time for this release that it was finally coming off the shelf and being put out there. And it's a good debut, decent debut by these two guitarists. I'll show you the back and the song listing. And the first song on here, Oh My Surprise, that's actually the first song that they played for Ahmet that sort of blew him away and convinced him that he wanted to sign these guys. Me and My Guitar, second song on here, is one of the 3 songs that John wrote when they told him they needed stronger material. And that definitely is a decent song. The other, of the 3 songs, the other 2 songs that he went back and wrote was Don't You Hear Me Calling and Let Me Go, which are both on the second side of this album. The third song on here, Can You See Me? Can You See Him? That actually became a bit of a popular song for them. It was played on college radio stations, local stations were playing it, but at over 6 minutes, it's 6 minutes and 4 seconds. It wasn't particularly hit single material, or wasn't considered to be, but it sort of made a name for them locally. So they start touring, and they play with Dave Mason, with the Youngbloods, with Bread, groups like that. And they start to make a name for themselves. So then the following year, 1972, they go back and they go into the studio. And this time around, unlike the 2 college, coffee house guitarists who were playing with these, more seasoned band members, now they've got a little bit more experience under their belt. Now they're more accustomed to the bands, playing with a band and writing songs for a band, quite frankly. So they get together and they come out with this second album, which is self-titled Batdorf and Rodney. And there are more musicians on this. There are more instrumentation. There's an organ, there's a harp, there's cello, string arrangements by Jimmy Haskell, who I believe he also did string arrangements for Simon and Garfunkel on the Bridge Over Troubled Water album. So it comes across as a more polished or commercial, if you will, album. Again, locally, it's fine. There are no hit singles per se from this album, but there's some fantastic songs. Poor Man's Dream, Oh Can You Tell Me is a great song. I don't know if you can see the song listings here, but a little hard to see. But there's one song here, Home Again. You listen to Home Again, and you would swear that this was written by and was being sung by Graham Nash. And a lot of these songs come across as sounding like Crosby, Stills and Nash, Seals and Crofts, England, then John Ford Coley, along those lines. So then some time passes, and they still haven't had a hit per se. So they meet up with Clive Davis, and this is around 1974, early 75, and Clive wants to basically make them more commercial. He wants them to have a hit single. He wants them to do the songs that he wants, basically. And he's coming off of success with Barry Manilow, who he convinced to do a song called Mandy. Many of you will probably remember that song. And that was a hit for Barry Manilow. I don't think Barry was particularly keen on doing it initially, but it was a hit single, and Clive knew what he was doing. But Clive pushes Batdorf and Rodney in that direction. They released a third album called Life Is You. I don't have that album. I can't show it to you, but that album is much more commercial. It's less Batdorf and Rodney. They have fewer songs that they wrote on the album, and the album actually does have a single that charts in the top 100. I think it only reaches somewhere in the 80s, upper 80s maybe, and it's I think it's called "You Are a Song." And but anyway, so they they've got these three albums under their belt, and eventually they decide to call it quits and they break up. They did get together and reunite in 2008, and they released another album at that time, and that one I believe is called "Still Burnin'," but again, it doesn't really get them any sort of chart success. Nevertheless, having said that, these albums, the first three, are good albums. I don't own like I said, the third one, but Batdorf and Rodney, self-titled and Off the Shelf, fantastic. And this one, I think, really sort of when you listen to it, you hear sort of that promise, I want to say, the potential that they had. This again, a little bit more, string arrangements. The production is moving up there, but they never would achieve the success that they probably should have had. As a matter of fact, as I think about it, before they released that third album with Clive Davis, they almost had a hit. At around that time, in I guess it was 75, there was a songwriting team of Jennings and Kerr and Jennings, I believe it is, and they wrote a song called "Somewhere in the Night," and that became a popular song that a lot of artists wanted to do, and in fact, 4 artists would release that song in that year, 1975. One of them being, and the first being, Batdorf and Rodney. And their version started to chart. I think it debuted at like number 80. It got into the 60s. But at that same time, Helen Reddy was going to be releasing it as a single. And the story goes that Helen Reddy's team were calling up radio stations and telling them if they played the Batdorf version, the radio station would never get another Helen Reddy single. So, needless to say, it didn't get the airplay. And Helen Reddy had a top 40 hit with it. I don't remember exactly where it was, maybe 29 or something like that. And then a couple of years later, and also Kim Carnes and Yvonne Elliman would also release it on their albums in 1975. And then a couple of years later, I think it was 3 years later, Barry Manilow would actually do the song "Somewhere in the Night," and he would have like a top 20. I believe it may have been like number 19 or something, or maybe it was even a top 10 hit. He had the most success with it. But again, Batdorf and Rodney did it first, and as much as I like Helen Reddy and Barry Manilow, I think the Batdorf and Rodney version is the way to go with that particular song. So anyway, if you're interested in listening to them, they are, like I said, similar to Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Seals and Croft, that type of genre. And I will leave a link to some of the songs in the description below. So thank you for listening. Stay safe, stay safe, stay well, and remember, if the music strikes a chord, let it play.